You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Air Lady sings and that makes it official. I'm so glad I don't have to sing that line after 14 years. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate it. As always, the Chris Voss Show is the family that loves you but doesn't judge you. At least not as harshly as your dad, because, I don't know, he likes your older brother better. But get on his good side, refer the show to him. Tell him to go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, all those crazy places on the internet. As always, we always talk about how stories are the owner's manual to life. That's one of the big things we talk about on the show. And we have the most amazing people who come on the show, the CEOs, the billionaires, the authors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, people who come on the show to tell their stories, their journeys of life, their cathartic moments, the things that they learned. And the great thing is you can find, number one, you're not alone in some of the issues you may have, and number two, they can help you resolve some of the issues you've had. And I've seen a few of you people, you've got issues. At least I'm the one with the issues. So there you go. That's why you should always listen to the show and refer to the show. We've got an amazing young lady on the show with us today. We're going to be talking about her new book that just came out March 5th, 2024. It's called Feel, Heal, and Reveal: A Journey to Emotional Independence. PJ Victor joins us on the show with us today, and we'll be talking about her amazing, inspiring book. She was raised in Naples, Florida. She started acting, modeling, singing, and writing, and speaking on stage at an early age, starting with commercial and plays in elementary school. After experiencing her first yoga class over 20 years ago at a shelter for abused women and children, she vowed to give back by becoming a certified yoga teacher so she could volunteer to help others learn to have peace within using their own breath. She's been teaching groups in private yoga classes since 2017, and she's also a certified mindfulness meditation teacher and certified master hypnotherapist. Welcome to the show. How are you, PJ?
Doing fantastic.
There you go. Welcome to the show. Give us your .coms. Tell us where people can find you on the interwebs.
Basically, I've got pjvictorwriter.com if you want to find out about my writing, but I do have a link tree, and it's Jenna's Journey, which is JENAH with an S, Journey. And that's just because the name is Jenna, but my pen name has become PJ, and I'm going to stick with it.
There you go. Run with it. Now, is this your first book?
This is. I have been published back in college with some poetry in some anthologies, but this is my first actual published book. I had the goal to do it at 35, but I did it 2 weeks before my 51st birthday instead.
Oh, it takes time to cook a good story. You got to make sure there's quality. It needs to make sure it's ready, I guess, and it takes time. So give us a 30,000 overview of your book, Feel, Heal, and Reveal.
Basically, it is a guidebook for anyone who needs to find emotional independence. And there is a difference between physical independence and emotional independence. Trauma is a huge buzzword this time in life. Everyone's talking about childhood trauma, adult trauma, trauma everywhere in between. If you remove yourself from the person who is causing you harm, that's helpful. But unless you truly heal the emotions inside, you're not going to have the independence that's going to bring you the joy that you're searching for. And so that was the idea behind this book. I didn't want it to be a he said, she said of some of the stories I've lived through and the people that I've had to remove myself from, but I wanted it to be a guidebook to encourage and to inspire others to go ahead and take that leap of faith in themselves and remove themselves, but also work on healing themselves.
Yeah. If you don't heal yourself, you're just taking that trauma and dragging it from relationship to relationship, people to people. It affects you in so many ways. You know, we've talked about a lot about trauma on the show, especially childhood trauma and how it can affect your whole life. I mean, you can, if you live long enough, you can usually look back across your life and you could be like, I was dragging something through the sand this whole time. And you can see the impact sometimes that it has on your life. Although sometimes in the media, it's hard to see. I came across the other day a really interesting thing about how the fish can't see the water or can't tell that there's water. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That kind of explains why when you're in trauma mode, you can't understand why you're reacting to stuff. I mean, for years, I used to wonder why I overreacted emotionally to certain things, or I would get triggered and overreact. And you have to heal your trauma. So let's talk a little bit about your journey through life. People like to get to know the author as well, and then we'll circle back to the book. Tell us how you grew up. When did you know you became a writer and you wanted to write and start telling stories?
I will be honest, this is not in this particular book because, like I said, I wanted to take the personal piece out of it. I really wanted people to see themselves in this book. But my trauma started very early when I was 2 years old, because from the ages of 2 to about 5.5, my biological mother was sexually trafficking me so that she could feed her addictions. And so she was giving me to drug dealers in exchange for drugs. And so you can imagine what these men did to me at a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old.
Jesus.
And we talk now about it openly, but it wasn't something we talked about in the 70s. So it took a long time for me to even understand that it wasn't something that was supposed to be happening to me. And by the time I was 8 and could verbalize it to my father, you know, you're still in the late 70s, early 80s. They gave custody to mothers when divorces happened. They never thought that it was worth looking at a dad, that maybe he could do this. So it took until I was almost 11 and a half, almost 12, for my father to get custody of me.
Wow.
The damage had been done. And there was some therapy involved, but it just was not enough. And I kind of just floated through life, escaping into books. I read tons and tons of books. And at that point, probably somewhere in that late elementary, early middle school age, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write books so that other people can escape. Now that's changed because now I'm writing nonfiction because I want to help others. And that's because of what's happened to me in the last few years. I have developed a mantra that I am a healer and that I am healed. And so I want to write books that inspire and help others heal themselves.
There you go. And we talked about in your bio about how you discovered yoga and breathing and different things. Talk to us about how you went on your healing journey for your trauma.
So as you can imagine, being traumatized sexually as a child, I wasn't really interested in boys growing up. And the boys I allowed myself to be around generally took advantage of me. So there were some rapes in high school. And by the time I did end up getting married, I was married to an abusive man who left me for dead in a closet. And I ended up in a shelter for abused women and children with the help of a friend. And like I said, I was there over 20 years ago now. And this wonderful, beautiful woman came in and did a breath work and yoga session with us. And I literally, I made the decision within moments of that class beginning, I'm going to get out of this situation and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do for the other women what this woman has just done for us. And it took a long time. Life happened. Life is not linear. I didn't go from that terrible tragedy to all of a sudden fixing myself. There were other relationships along the way that got in the way of me becoming a yoga teacher. But it finally happened a couple years after I had unfortunately experienced some trauma in Las Vegas at the October 1 shooting in 2017. And I was able to not only become a yoga teacher, but specialized in trauma recovery yoga. And that was absolutely, starting in 2019, a pinnacle into my journey of actually finding healing.
There you go. So what is it about yoga that you find really helps people so much and helps them manage or deal with trauma?
So it's really about connecting to your breath. One of the problems that I have encountered, and I've heard it talked about a lot, is that when you're traumatized, you become into this hyper vigilant state of fight or flight, and you don't even remember to breathe. You're constantly holding your breath. You're constantly waiting for the next shoe to drop. You're constantly waiting for the next hand to raise to smack you around.
Hmm.
So I find that yoga and meditation allow me to be me and to remember the pieces of me that I was allowing to die inside. And I had lost my smile, I had lost my joy. But through yoga and meditation and teaching it to others, watching them cry, because it does happen, you're releasing emotions, but
Oh,
then watching them come out on the other side of that class with a smile on their face,
mhm.
it changes you.
There you go. You know, we've had different scientists and scholars and people on the show that have talked about how damage and emotional damage and trauma can be what's the right word for this, can be contained in the body, can be held inside of the body, and maybe it's a muscle reaction. Like I used to find with my ADHD or my trauma, I would trigger a seizing of my stomach and my stomach muscles, and then it would kind of go into my chest and my heart. And people experience that with anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. And so it translates into the body pretty well. And some people feel that it stores in the muscles or organs and stuff. And so maybe that's part of a memory base that the body uses to store its memories, and it's triggered by this. It's beyond my pay grade, clearly. And so it sounds, breathing and yoga helps you figure all that out, maybe wash out some of that stuff.
That is exactly what I found. And I will tell you that it's not enough, though. I mean, I find that to really find healing, you need a connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit. So for me personally, I can tell you that the trauma had been stored in my body for so long that I developed after the shooting, after surviving the shooting. I had been pregnant with twins and lost one as a result of that shooting.
Wow.
It was beyond postpartum depression that I was feeling. And they wanted to prescribe all these wonderful medications that were supposed to make me better, but it was really only treating the symptoms.
Mm.
And so I read a book called The Body Keeps Score, and it made complete sense. It clicked for me to understand, oh, wait, the things that happen to 2, 3, and 4-year-old Jenna, just because you ignore them, just because you don't think about them, doesn't mean that that is still somewhere inside of you. And it really took until August of 2022 when a medical professional looked at me and said, "You've developed an autoimmune disorder. You have terrible blood markers. Your lung capacity is failing you. Yes, you have a 4-year-old and you have these other 2 children as well, but you might need, not might, she told me emphatically, get your will in order. You're not going to survive this."
Holy
And
crap.
that was a huge wake up call that I needed to do something beyond meditation and beyond yoga to figure out how to bring myself back to life. And it's been a battle, but that battle that I fought and won, because I've now been in remission for almost 15 months,
Wow.
is why I had to write this book.
There you go. Share the journey, share the struggles, share the cathartic moments, and help other people that might be going through the same thing. The body keeps the score. I've heard about this book before, and I think that's some of the references that people have made, and talks about how the body, I guess, holds that trauma in the physical nature of the body, and cleansing it and cleaning it is really important. Now, in the book, you talk about the journey to emotional independence. Does it ever end? How long does this go on? Is it can I just do it to the end of the block, or is this something I gotta take a drive with?
I wish. The short answer is absolutely no, it never ends.
Darn it.
The journey of embracing your sensitivity and finding your emotional independence is not linear.
Hmm.
I have discovered over the years that there are a lot of highs and there are also a lot of lows.
Mm-hmm.
And you discover things, you face the challenges. And the key word that was constantly being used with me is, wow, you're such a survivor. And I really got tired of hearing that because I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to thrive. So I had to learn to cherish the sensitivity, to honor myself, let my emotions guide me to learning how to respond rather than react, so that I really could feel this absolute emotional independence. And I'll tell you, there was a relationship that I was in that I did finally get brave enough to walk away. But like many, I went right back in, not under the same terms, because I had started to create some boundaries, but they weren't clear enough.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's when my health took its biggest dive. I was in a toxic relationship, therefore the toxicity was taking over my body. And so I just really feel like, okay, I missed the mark. I didn't write the book I wanted at 35, but here I was, knowing with more wisdom that each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. And maybe if I could communicate that to others, then they would start taking small steps to their own personal victories.
There you go. Now, in the book, you talk about being sensitive is a superpower. Tell us about that.
So a lot of times in relationships, and I know it works both ways, men to women, women to men, your sensitivity is seen as a weakness, and the other person might try to use that against you. But I really try to drive home in the book, and I do repeat it in a couple different chapters, that you have to remember that being sensitive is not kryptonite. Being sensitive in this sometimes absolutely insensible world is a superpower, because it's so pivotal to cultivate environments and relationships that honor your sensitivity rather than demean it. And so setting boundaries has become another buzzword in our culture now, but you have to do it to protect your emotional well-being. And I've even noticed, as I've continued this journey and become much more emotionally independent than I was before, it wasn't just that significant other that needed to be removed from my life. I had to, as I learned from a mentor, fire my friends. There were some friends that I literally had to be like, look, I get it. You want to talk negatively about this person. You think it's cool. I don't want to go there. I'm walking away from that situation and that person. And yes, there's a child involved and there's other children involved and there's all these things, but I want to move forward in positivity. And if you want to gossip all day long, you're going to have to do it about me now too, because I'm not going to be in front of your face.
You know, I found that as I've grown older that you just don't have time for certain people, and you need to bust those people and say, you know, go your own way there. I've learned that a small group of people and surrounding yourself with high quality people is super important. People with integrity, people with good traits of human kindness and honesty and trust. You know, the life is too short to spend your time living with people that, you know, their lives are a mess and they love it that way, and it's just the way it rolls. And I like the paradigm shifts that you're doing. You know, you talked about moving from being a survivor to a thriver. You know, looking at people and going, you know, who are the people around me? There's a saying that we become we become like the 5 people that are around us. And some people argue whether it's true or not, but I think it's true because they have the greatest effect on you subconsciously and consciously on who you are. And they can influence you positively or negatively depending upon their outlooks of life and their ambitions and what they want to take and do. Do you agree with me on that?
Absolutely. My grandfather he's been in heaven now since I think 1998, but he used to tell myself, my father, and different people that there are 3 types of people in this world: those who are going to help you, those are going to hurt you, and those that will do neither one. And you need to decide which one you want to be and then act accordingly. And for me, no matter what has happened to me in my life, I've always wanted to display a servant's heart and help others. Even, you know, I'm the one everyone always said, she'll give you the shirt off her back.
Wow.
But I learned, like I said, that I had to fire some friends, because sometimes the people you were giving your shirt to weren't going to give you one back when you needed it.
Yeah, that's true. I've had that happen a lot in life where you're like, I really have to call in a favor, but you call in that favor and it's, you get the answering machine or something, and you're just like, wow, okay, I see how this works. And yeah, it's really important to identify those people, and just the quality of people you have around you could make all the difference. You talk about setting intentions. What are intentions as you define them, and why is it important to set them?
So when you're moving forward, physically out of a relationship or emotionally from something that you are trying to release and learn to respond instead of react, you have to remember the importance of setting intentions. And what I mean by that is these are not just mere wishes that you throw into the wind, like when you pick up a dandelion and just see where it leads you. I know that within meditation and yoga, it's a woo-woo kind of world. I'm woo. I'm not woo-hoo. So I'm the girl like at a concert, woo, but rather you have to have these really powerful affirmations to determine your direction and your desires. Intentions are basically, the way I look at it, like a compass that is guiding your steps, ensuring that even when the path gets a little foggy and it's raining outside, you don't say to yourself, oh, crap, the sun is not coming out for me today. I'm just going to hide in my room. Instead, you develop a sense of where you're headed, and you get out of bed and you open the door and you go out anyway.
Mm-hmm. There you go. You talk about how to recognize toxic behaviors. Why do we need to recognize toxic behaviors, I suppose, in ourselves and other people?
So we've talked about firing friends, right? So a partner or a friend, they are someone who is supposed to uplift and support you and be a cheerleader, not perpetually find fault and manipulate your emotions. And that was a really difficult lesson. And like I said, it's not linear. I had to learn it over and over and over again, and sometimes with that same person multiple times. So recognizing the signs is not about fault finding. It's not about pointing the finger, because we've all heard, you point a finger at me and you got three pointing back at you. Mm-hmm. And it's not about labeling others. I didn't want to throw this whole book into narcissism and behaviors of that type, but it's true. In order to protect your well-being, you've got to recognize when these behaviors are happening in front of you. And it's really important to understand when an interaction is leaving you drained rather than bringing you joy, having you feel fulfilled. And you've got to spot those red flags, because that's the signal that it's time to set boundaries. You don't want to wait until you've been left for dead in a closet. Yeah. That is a lesson that I had to learn. And that person left me physically. We separated, but I just found another person who had the same behaviors. And so you do have to keep learning it over and over again. And a key thing that I had to learn was that there is a difference between manipulation and gaslighting.
Yeah.
And I tried to express this in the book, that manipulation, it starts with these small requests or minor criticisms, just for a way that the manipulator can kind of test the waters. And they're just laying the groundwork for this dynamic where they're going to hold all the power, and you gradually just give it all away. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you've got gaslighting, where you feel like you're losing grip of reality. And it is a form of psychological manipulation. Whereas the victim starts to question their memories and their perception and even their sanity. And I'm like, wait, did that happen? Because the person's telling you, oh, I never said that. Or, oh, I was joking. And so you start to question your sensitivity and wonder, oh, I am being too sensitive because they said I'm being too sensitive. But remember, I told you, sensitivity is a superpower. Mm-hmm. So over time, your confidence erodes, and it's crucial to understand that those behaviors are not reflections of your worth. Because when you question your self-worth, those tactics just simply exert even more and more control over you.
There you go.
And you mentioned like physical things, like when we talked about the body keeping score, that was like I said, that was the pinnacle for me, being told, hey, you're literally going to die. And so the headaches, the stomach aches, the fatigue, They're all symptoms that the body is using to sound an alarm to someone who is literally letting go of their boundaries.
There you go. And yeah, people have killed themselves. They destroyed themselves. They destroyed, I think, parts of themselves by the stress and the pain that they carry, the trauma they carry. You see people that go into autoimmune diseases and people that go into, what's that one thing I've seen a lot of depressed people get? It's a thing where they lack energy and usually there's a lot of depression going on in their life. There's something that they have unresolved. But a lot of these unresolved behaviors, I think you might agree, until we resolve them, we keep repeating the same pattern with ourselves, with relationships. We'll pick the same partners. I find a lot of people that have unhealed trauma, let's flesh this out. I was listening to Ryan Taraban, I think it is, that's on YouTube. He has a big YouTube channel. He's a licensed psychologist. And he was talking about something that I heard a long time ago. Like I heard this like 20 or 30 years ago, that one of the problems people that have trauma do or unresolved issues from childhood is they try and find ways to replicate that scenario. And so they pick relationships and people and scenarios that help them try and relive that scenario. And their thinking in the subconscious mind is that they can relive it and they can beat the game, and they can somehow repair that by beating the game. The problem is usually those scenarios are they have an end result that's because of the scenario that it's in. If you go swim in the sewer, it's not going to get better. You're not going to have a good experience no matter how many times you go swim in the sewer. It's always going to be bad. And so people have to realize that they've got to resolve that trauma, but you just can't go into those relationships over and over again expecting a different result, and you're going to end up in the same result, especially when you're dealing with two broken people that you have broken glass and they have razor blades, and you're like, play together, see if you can figure it all out. And so it was kind of interesting to me, and I think that's why a lot of people do that. They keep picking the bad partners. They keep getting in this bad relationships. Sometimes there's a comfort level too, where they've grown up with drama, the stress, the trauma of seeing that relationship communicated or signaled to them or represented to them as, well, this is what a relationship is, and that's all you know as a child. Then you keep choosing and picking those partners and replicating those relationships until you resolve your trauma.
I agree with you 110%. I didn't have daddy issues. My father was a very loving man, and once he had full custody of me, he did everything he could to try to create happy memories for me, like they were going to override my earlier childhood. But what I did is I dated men, boy children, that had drug and alcohol problems because I couldn't fix mommy, but maybe I could fix them. Wow. And it took a long time for me to understand that's what I was doing. And an important thing I had to do was forgive myself for doing that. Oh. That was absolutely crucial to finding emotional independence, which was simply just forgiving myself, because otherwise that behavior was going to keep getting repeated.
Yeah. And I like how you identify that. A lot of times what you see in a young woman who makes bad choices in partners, it's usually a lack of a father in the home or a good, healthy, masculine father figure. So usually that's what you see when I see single mothers build single mothers build single mothers. And so what you find is if they don't have that father with the blueprint of a healthy male, they don't know what a healthy male masculine looks like. And yours is very different because of where you were raised by your mother first. And so you're trying to save your mother. And so you pick men that you're trying to save with the same sort of issues. That's really interesting. I don't see that a lot.
And now here I am as a single mom raising 3 boys and trying to raise them to be, and I tell them all the time, men of good character. Yeah. Because truly, as long as I forgive myself, then I can help them navigate the complexities of their own relationships and hopefully Lord willing, teach them to remember that the choice to respond rather than react is an incredible, powerful act of self-love. And as long as you love yourself, guess what? Others can love you too.
Definitely. And the great thing about being a man, operating your masculine, is you use logic and reason. So you shouldn't be responding with emotion. And that's what boys and men need to be taught. One of the things you talk about in the book is communicating with a narcissist. There's a lot of narcissistic chatter on social media. I think some of it's a bit much because, I think designated or diagnosed narcissism is maybe 5 to 10% of the population, but there seems to be a lot of people I've dated that they've dated at least all of them. So somehow they corner the market. So talk to us about narcissism, and then once you identify one that truly is, communicating with them, I guess.
So I was so fortunate, and I say that with a lot of sarcasm. I was going through therapy with a partner, and the counselor was shocked because my partner scored a 100% on the narcissistic personality disorder test. And of course, this person was like, oh, cool, I got 100. And the counselor was like, in my 30 years of counseling, no one has ever scored over an 80. So it just goes to show that I kept making the same mistake over and over again. But what I have learned from that and others, and it's not just partners, relationship partners, even friends, right? When you're communicating with someone who is either displaying narcissistic personality disorder traits or some forms of narcissism, it's like navigating a minefield. Yeah. Because you never know what might trigger an explosion. Mm-hmm. And so the golden rule that I have found is to stay factual and unemotional as possible. Emotions are the ammunition that narcissists use against you. So if you can keep your communication brief and based only on facts, then you completely reduce their arsenal. And when they don't have an arsenal, it's just like having a bully that you just ignore, right? Mm-hmm. Then they have nothing to come back at you with. And I admit, I've seen a lot now lately with social media of people trying to say, hey, here's how you go through a divorce with a narcissist. Here's how you do these things. And they have great tips. They really do. But I'm someone who wants to be a cause and not effect. So I have come to realize that the best way to communicate with a narcissist is to limit the communication and then give yourself a shield. And your shield is self-care. So in this battle against narcissistic abuse, your well-being is your fortress. The activities that you choose to do, like nourishing your body, your mind, and your spirit, that's what's going to empower you to stand firm when there's this onslaught of negativity coming at you. So it might be because I've got boys running and always kind of trying to find me. If I'm lost and you can't find me, ask one of the boys, they'll find me immediately. So I might be hiding in the bathroom journaling. I might find time for myself to meditate, or I might just take a walk with my shoes off and just feel the grass under my feet and enjoy nature. But those are the practices that replenish your inner strength, remind you of your value and your worth, and reinforce your resilience so that when that narcissistic person tries to communicate with you, knowledge is power. We learn that as kids, right? Mm-hmm. So if you educate yourself about narcissistic personality disorder, you can demystify their behaviors. It's no longer confusing to you what you're experiencing. Yeah. And then you get to detach emotionally. So while you're becoming emotionally independent, you're also learning to detach emotionally from their attempts to continue to manipulate and control you. And so you really, I'm not a huge sports fan. I love me some hockey because I'm going to be a Vegas Golden Knights fan until I'm 6 feet under. But if you think of it as learning the opposing team's playbook, you can predict their moves, you become an amazing chess player, and you can strategize accordingly.
There you go. It's, in healing your trauma too ahead of time, it helps you be less of a victim, because I think narcissists hunt for people. I think people that are broken hunt for damaged people, sometimes because they're damaged too. They hunt for people like themselves. And that's in being resolving your trauma, trying to fix your trauma. And of course, it sounds like, well, just fix your trauma, Chris, in a perfect world. But I meet people being single all my life that they've never resolved their trauma. And they go from relationship to relationship, and every relationship's the same. And you're like, are you gonna heal this trauma? I was talking to somebody the other day that I was interested in, and found out they had PTSD, and I'm like, so are you going to therapy for that? And she's like, no. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, bye. And you can identify, and hey, it's not my job to save people. They got to save themselves. You can save people. You can give them advice. You can write great books for them. You can, maybe suggest some yoga for them, but they got to do the work. And I love that phrase, do the work. And so until they have their come to Jesus moment where they go, hey, I'm going to fix my trauma and I'm going to do that. But it makes, once you fix it, I think you become less of meat for predators like narcissists and other people who are going to abuse you. What do you think about that?
I agree. And like I was saying earlier, you have to forgive yourself. That's a key piece of healing. Mm-hmm. Because if you have this low self-worth and you have this feeling like I'm a terrible human being, that's why they're being mean to me. You're going to keep finding people who are going to be mean to you. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you forgive yourself, when you slip up, when you react in a way that you regret, then that's when the change occurs. Healing, we all say, oh, you have to heal your trauma. You have to heal your trauma. Well, change is a process. It's not something you can pop a pill and bam, you're healed. Even when you break a bone and you have a cast on and then they take that cast off, there's normally some atrophy to the muscle. And you have to then keep working on that leg or that arm that was broken to get it back to where it used to be. And so change has these setbacks, but also these victories. So when you celebrate the victories, then you're committed to your growth. Mm-hmm. And then you've got this willingness to learn from everything that you encounter. And then maybe you go on a date with somebody like Chris and you don't say, oh yeah, I've got PTSD. You say, I experienced PTSD and now I've changed. I've become a better person. I evolved. My last name is Victor. And I like to always say, I'm not a victim, I'm a victor.
I love
that. Because
that's awesome.
Yeah, I want to cultivate this skill, right? Of responding, not just protecting myself, because when I was a little girl, I didn't know how to protect myself.
Yeah.
And then I ended up in constant toxicity. And like you were talking about the fish in the water, you start swimming in toxic waters and you don't know those waters are toxic. You're constantly breathing it in. That's all you know. Yep. But once you start to embrace change, once you really decide, and it's a choice, we all have this free will, right? Mm-hmm. Once you choose that you're going to become healthier, once you embrace a more mindful and intentional approach to your own life, all of your relationships get healthier because you got healthier. Yep. Your self-esteem strengthens. And then you have this profound sense of peace. So when someone tries to communicate with you in an unhealthy manner, doesn't matter anymore. Because you're navigating through the complexities of relationships and you're remembering, oh, I made a choice. I created a boundary. I'm going to respond. I'm not going to react. And then you're really showing yourself self-love and all this affirmation about your worth and your capacity to rise over all of that negativity.
And I love how inspiring you put that. That's so motivating. Thrive, don't survive, thrive. And you're right. It makes all the difference in the world. Knowing your value is so important, and having these issues resolved, because when you meet people, especially if you're seeking relationships or friendships and stuff, you meet people and right away, they have ways, if they're toxic, they have ways of testing you or pinging you, if you will, putting you through, seeing what you respond to, like usually what I'll see is I'll see in the form of little pokes or disrespects. Sometimes as a man, a lot of women do what's called shit testing, where they shit test you to, see if you're on your masculine. But there's a difference between that and just like outright disrespect, or you'll see like control things that will be, testing your value and seeing where it is. And I think that by knowing your value, by having your trauma healed, you recognize that very early on with people. I mean, I'll see it right away. I'll be like, what the fuck did you just say to me? I mean, I'll think that in my head, but, and I'm not being emotionally reactive. I'm just like, wait, I kind of felt that and heard that. And yeah, I think I see a little bit of what you're up to. I think I see the tip of the iceberg there. I think I see what's going on, what you're about. And this is just the beginning. So we're just not going to go down this road.
I totally agree with you, because here's the thing. When you learn to respond instead of react, then you disarm those toxic individuals, and then you reclaim your peace, and you have your own power. And then you are not just a survivor, but you're actually a thriver despite their toxicity, because it's theirs, not yours. You made a choice to not get in that nasty fishbowl. And so that path from reaction to response, it's challenging. Not gonna lie, haven't enjoyed every moment of it, but the journey I found is so worth it. As a little girl, I walked through with rose-colored glasses until I realized what was happening to me. Then I jumped into books and read them so that I could escape into these worlds where everything was beautiful and the families lived happily ever after. Well, now I feel like I won the battle. I mean, there's still things going on with my ex, right? But I feel like the battle for myself and my own sanity and my own peace was totally worth where I am today. And now I just want to encourage others to choose to navigate their life with grace and with strength and resilience, because that is like in our response, that's where the growth and the freedom really comes from. You're a handsome man. If a woman came into your life and y'all went on a coffee date or whatever it may be, if she is showing you that there has been growth and that she is free from the past, then you've got a real shot at living together, not necessarily in the same house, but I mean, walking together, walking in the journey together. And I think that's what we all want. We crave companionship. That's kind of the way we were created. But as you started talking about way back in the beginning of our talk today, people keep walking out of one toxic relationship into another. And we just have to create this world of people who have healed themselves and made the choice so that we can start going into healthy relationships. And all these people that are healed can find each other, and the toxic people can go swim in that fishbowl themselves.
There you go. One of my keys to those coffee dates is you make sure their therapist comes with them. You buy them a coffee too, and you can get a validation, or, if they can at least bring a note from their doctor, that helps. So this person has been in therapy for 5 years and is healed. Now, everyone right now listening to the show is going like, Chris needs it the most. But what's interesting too, that made me think about that is, when you know your value, when you heal your trauma, and you've taken survivor to thriving, it shows. Like, it comes out just in our conversation. Your positivity is radiant, and how you think and how you've developed yourself and healed your trauma. And what's interesting is, I find that when toxic people come along, or maybe they're not healed, or maybe they're not developed enough, they will tap themselves out if you're interested in dating them. And I've heard this so many times over I don't know how long have I been alive and dating. You're not the sort of guy who's going to put up with my shit. This isn't going to work out. And I've heard that line like so many times, and they'll tap themselves out. Like, you're a really nice guy. You're the guy who's not going to put up with my shit. And I'm like, why would you want to give someone you love your shit? That doesn't make any sense. But you can tell that they're not at that place in their life, and they realize that you're probably not going to put up with their shit, and they need to go swim in the toxic thing. And so it's interesting how it kind of, some of those people kind of wash themselves out, is what I'm saying.
They do. I agree, because I ended up dating someone and getting to the point where, you meet the parents, right? Mother loved me. Mom thought I was amazing. Loved all my kids, But he was just like, I got to tell you, I don't want to date you because I can't control you. I need
Oh.
somebody younger that I can control.
Hmm.
I was like, let me help you. Walk out the door.
There you go. There you go. My issue is the moms usually love me more than the daughters, and the moms are like, she doesn't deserve you. So there you go. If I wasn't married, the one last thing I want to cover is you talk in your book. People with trauma, they have a lot of negative self-talk because they abuse themselves because they've been abused, and they blame themselves, and they just you've kind of alluded to it throughout the thing. They have that negative self-talk. They punish themselves. How do you overcome that?
So it was a interesting thing for me. Probably one of my longest standing friends passed away during COVID, and he was actually murdered for $300 in his pocket.
Oh, wow.
And it was just a simple people going crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment in my life, when I found out and that call came to me, I took every tool I had learned in trauma recovery yoga, and I sat on the stairs of the house I was looking to purchase. And I could hear other people in the background, it was the home inspection actually of the house that I was looking to purchase. And I just kind of walked through these really simple steps in about 90 seconds. And it just completely cleared my focus. And then, of course, I went home and I wrote it down, and I started to practice it. I recorded it and started to practice it for myself. Do you have 90 seconds?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, we got plenty of time. Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I
wasn't
want
sure
you
if
to
that
do.
was a setup for the thing.
No, this is for you.
Okay.
And anyone listening, Chris,
All right.
I want you to know, and you're a very intelligent man, so I know you know this.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
The center of your forehead is your logic center.
This one,
It's
right
your
here?
planning center. And many of us have heard the saying that an elephant never forgets. Negative thoughts are like tiny little elephants slowly wandering around in our minds, taking up space in our logic center, our planning center, and continuing to use that space for their home, even when we no longer want them there.
Mm.
I want you to take a moment to imagine all your negative thoughts, the things that you have told yourself, the things that others have told you. Imagine them, visualize them as paper origami elephants. And I want you to set those paper elephants on fire with your strong breath. I want you to breathe in deeply through your nose and send your breath like a blazing fire to your forehead. And as you exhale, just sweep away the ashes of all those paper elephants, which are no longer strong enough to take hold in your mind, with a cool, moist breeze. Again, breathe in through the nose. Set the remaining paper elephants on fire and exhale as you blow the ashes away, clearing them away, so there is only room for love and happiness to fill your forehead.
I love it. Wait, I have paper monkeys now. No, I'm just kidding. Monkeys.
That's okay. They can be tigers, monkeys, it doesn't matter.
No, they're just.
For me, it was a paper origami elephant because I had one of my sons loves doing origami, and that's what it is. I sat on the stairs. I took my shoes off because I knew that feeling grounded was important, and I rubbed my feet into the carpet of the stairs. And I closed my eyes, and I just imagined paper elephants catching fire. And then as I did my exhale, those elephants, the ashes were just blowing away. And I've been now doing that since 2020. So about 4 years, I've been practicing that to really bring myself back to center. It's like a self-regulation process. And, you can do it quickly, 30 seconds. Just imagine those elephants, breathe in, breathe out, 3 breaths, and go on with your day.
This is way better than what I used to do with the people who used to annoy me and be in that area where I'd set them on fire. So the judge says I can't do that anymore. So this works well. No, I like the analogy of where you took and you imagine those thoughts and then you kind of simplify or disassociate by making them paper. And so they don't become so powerful in our minds. And then you use the imagery to wipe them away. And of course, breath is a great way to do that. I mean, I feel a little bit more relaxed now too. And that's really, I mean, this area here, like when I get my facial massages and stuff, oh my God, they start rubbing this area right here and your whole brain just goes, oh, wow. It's like where you carry all your stress. And so probably because I'm always worrying and squinting and looking at people like I want to set them on fire. So there you go. Give us your final thoughts as we go out. Tell people where they can order up the book. Do you have any services that you're offering, like coaching or anything like that, on your website too as well?
So if you go readysethealed.com, that is where I offer services for quitting smoking, releasing weight, and finding healing with the help of someone to walk you through and coach you through that process, basically as a mindset coach. pjvictorwriter.com, that's where I'm going to start showing all my books. I have another book actually coming out in the next week. My second book coming out. I'm kind of excited about that since it's dedicated to my oldest son. And, I have, prior to coming on with you, I was watching some of your podcasts and you've got a sense of humor and it made me laugh. And so I thought you might enjoy knowing, and I'm sure you probably know this, but if it's not in the book, it's a secret, we'll call it an Easter egg that I'm going to give to you. We learn, obviously, about when to walk away. That's in one of the chapters, is learning when to walk away. Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked enough today about setting boundaries and sticking with them. But I have to tell you, my ex told me that he couldn't live without me, but I know for a fact that he's still alive. So it's just more lies.
That's unfortunate. No, I'm just kidding.
And what I have learned in the process of remaking some of these mistakes I've made, taking an ex back is like eating at McDonald's.
Yeah, don't do that.
It seems like a great idea at the time, but afterwards you are hugging the toilet and very sick to your stomach.
Sounds like Friday.
And I'll take it a step further. Taking an ex back is like trying to put poop back into your butt. All you're going to do is get shit on your hands.
There you go. Yeah, I think I've done that once. I think everyone has to kind of do it once to experience how fun it is. Not. And you eventually go back and, it seems like kind of cool because you miss each other. But then after a day or two, you're like, oh, it's you. I forgot. Oh, it's you again. Oh, man. People are like, I'll change. And you're like, no, you won't. I don't think people really change much over the thing. But this has been really inspiring. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's great to see how you've taken the challenges of your life, the cathartic moments, and you've turned them into positivity, and you've turned from a survivor to a thriver, and given us all the inspiration to do that. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it, PJ.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me the space to share that with you and with your listeners. I appreciate you.
There you go. And give us the .coms as we round out. We like to do the bookends, so give us
one more time. So the book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it is Feel, Heal, Reveal. Bam! It's kind of exciting. Red is my power color, so this was, honestly, one of the best covers that I could ever imagine coming out with, because I do love living on the water. And that was one of the things I did was release the relationship and come back home. Yeah. So Feel, Heal, and Reveal. It is my first book. I'm super proud. It was like giving birth to another baby. And I'm excited because this is the first of many. Second book comes out next week. And the third and fourth are slated for towards the end of the summer. And just my goal is at least 4, if not 6 books this year. I'm just not going to stop trying to inspire and help people heal.
Yeah. Well, you're doing an awesome job of it so far. So please continue. Order up the book, folks, wherever fine books are sold. Feel, Heal, and Reveal, A Journey to Emotional Independence. And we've talked about some things that hopefully have changed some people's lives. Get the book so you can delve in that journey some more and reach out to PJ on our website. Maybe do some work with her, because I don't have the elephants running around. Now I just have a bunch of bag of monkeys, but I've always been crazy that way. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok and Chris Voss Facebook.com. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.